what's up, my spherical little Oro Blancos? This is Rob from Plays, and today on #confirmed, Devstream 131 is getting us all caught up with the latest news on Vauban's rework. Now, for those of you guys who are wondering what is going on with Ember, because you heard that she is getting one as well, I'll actually go ahead and leave a link to my hot takes up in the top corner. And rest assured, you're definitely going to want to check out that video because it is pretty lit. Oh, so you've already thumbs down the video. Oh, nope, you've unsubscribed. Wait, before you click off, let's go ahead and take a look at what is going on with Vauban. Now, as many of you guys are assuredly aware, a lot of the feedback that DE had been getting with Vauban is the fact that a lot of his abilities overlapped and that he's a pretty stationary frame, meaning that you had to recast all of his abilities whenever you decided to move. And as you guys know, Warframe is very mobile, so he's basically recasting all of the time. And with this rework, I actually think that DE did a great job at addressing all of those issues. So let's go ahead and take a look at his passive real quick, which has remained unchanged. However, I do have a couple questions that go along with it. So it is a 25% damage boost to incapacitated targets. Now, as you will see, he's still got a lot of CC abilities, so I'm wondering exactly what we're gonna get the boost to. So keep that in mind as we go down the line of his skills. So his first ability, Tesla, has definitely undergone a major change. So instead of just casting all of these balls that just kind of stick to the area and shock targets, now he's actually able to throw down these little rollers that act as like sticky shock grenades on enemies. So it'll actually roll around with Vauban, seek out an enemy, jump on them, stick to them, and do an AoE shock. So it actually controls the enemy, which kind of immobilizes them in a way, which makes me wonder if it works with his passive, which hopefully it does. And he's actually able to charge up this ability to throw out 4 at once. Now, his maximum amount of Teslas currently in this kind of like rolling sphere era is actually going to be max 4. But DE is actually going to be working on some AI improvements so that they can accommodate more AI on the field, which could potentially lead to more than 4 Tesla. So he could actually have a little army of rolling drones around him, which, to be honest with you, is kind of like almost like weirdly Pied Piper-ish. Kind of cool, kind of scary at the same time, but kind of lets the CC flow along with him, which improves his survivability, right? Now moving on to his second ability, it's still Mind Layer, but Mind Layer has pretty much changed completely. In fact, I don't think that there's a single skill in Mind Layer that corresponds with the old version. One of the things that they did do with Mind Layer as well is they actually dropped down the energy cost to 25 to help its recastability, because this is something that you're going to want to toss out a lot of. So the first skill is now a sticky rip line. So you actually throw out this grenade and it latches onto enemies and pulls them in. Now, it acts very similarly to Nidus's larva in that sense. However, what I noticed from the footage on the dev stream is it only pulled in 2 enemies at a time. And it's not like they pulled it super duper far away from enemies, so I'm curious to see exactly what the max amount of enemies pulled in at once is going to be. Aside from that, the really cool thing about this is it's, how do I want to put it? It's constantly sticky, so you can actually knock enemies around and they will still snap back to the same area. Does that make sense? It's kind of like you can kind of knock an enemy back and they'll still roll back to that same fastened point. They were making a note that this actually works really, really well with Bastille. If there is an enemy that is just slightly out of your range, you can actually toss one of these down and it'll pull an enemy into Bastille. So I do think that that's some good synergy there. Next one, we actually have Nail Grenade. Now, this one I'm a little bit torn on, and I hope there's a little more utility added into this. But basically, you just throw down this grenade, it kind of levitates, and it starts shooting out grenades, or not grenades, little nails. It's very similar to like the Azima, but instead of just like a horizontal spread, it seems that projectiles are actually shot intelligently at surrounding enemies. I did notice that there were a couple puncture procs going on, and I was hoping that this was something that could be affected maybe by power strength, by increasing the status chance, because then it's not just this kind of like low damage nail grenade that you throw out, but it can actually act as some sort of debuff to surrounding enemies. That would be nice, more than it being a, you know, single faceted skill. However, if the damage found a way to scale, much like his orbital strike skill will, this could actually be feasible. Next up. Oh, this one. We had to have one. We had to have one Mimi skill, and I know that some people are going to argue, this isn't Mimi. It's very useful. I'm rolling my eyes right now. But instead of the traditional bounce pad, we now have a speed boost pad. It's very similar to the ones that you see in racing games where it's a bunch of arrows pointing in a specific direction, and if you cross over it, it'll actually propel you forward. Now, what they were saying is you can actually use this on like wide open maps and toss down a bunch of these to keep propelling yourself forward at an increased movement rate. They were also saying that you can kind of create a pinball effect because it's not necessarily a movement speed boost. It actually just pushes and propels you forward. So you can put them in different designs to kind of like, pinball your way around specific areas. Again, to me, I wish that this was something that was more utility based rather than just kind of like like some weird Mimi utility thing that we really can't make use of, but we'll give them one. Now, the last ability in Mind Layer I actually think is pretty cool, and I wished that they had done something similar for the speed boost pad ability. But it's actually a damage amp grenade. So what it does is you can actually toss down this damage amp. Now, if you don't have one on you, apparently, you can go ahead and leave them for your allies and they'll actually jump onto a nearby ally. So what happens is it actually provides a damage buff, which is very, very nice because of the fact that Vauban is so CC based that he'll get a nice little damage boost to finish off anything that is in his traps. So in my head, I'm thinking along the lines of, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That buff that you actually get on yourself is also an aura. So if maybe you're not tossing it down to your allies, maybe you'll be able to buff them as well. Now, I'm very curious though. If you toss 4 down, you have one on you and your allies have them on themselves. Does that mean that you're also getting the aura from the allies? Now, I think that that might be really freaking awesome because of the fact that, DE is all about let's promote team tactics and yada, 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 and so on and so forth. Because if that's the case and you're getting damage buffs from being around your allies and your allies are getting damage buffs from being around you as well, and it all stacks, that could be a pretty strong damage buff for Vauban. And I mean, listen, everybody loves Rhino for his damage buff, so this might help out as well. Now, like I was saying earlier when we talked about the passive skill, I'm always very, very curious about whether this is going to synergize with the sticky rip line. I'm hoping that it does, but again, I've got to keep everything applied. So as for the speed boost pad though, I was kind of hoping that maybe we would get something along the lines of a like reload speed, attack speed buff instead that would act as a buff to your allies, or maybe even a defensive one that would increase, armor or, increase health and shield, something along those lines. I think that would be more helpful than this weird Mimi speed boost ball thing. But like I said, I'll give them one. All right, so next up is the third ability, the one that everybody is going gaga for. And after I heard more details about it, I'm kind of like, I see what you're doing. You're ticking my boxes. I have to see exactly how this works. So as you guys know, this is going to replace where Bastille used to be, and now it is going to be Vauban's Orbital Strike. And it's pretty simple. Basically, you throw down a grenade, and it slowly begins to charge up. After that charge up time, you deal like a shit ton of damage, and they were saying that it's gonna be a high damage ability in a small area space. Now, the thing that they said when it came to scaling on this is when you throw down that grenade, it's actually going to take into account the levels of the surrounding enemy and deal damage based on that. And supposedly high damage based on that. So in my eyes, I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested in a little bit of scaling damage. And like I was saying, that's kind of what I'm worried about with the whole nail grenade. I'm like, Vauban is made for CC. You're not going to use a CC frame on like a lot of middling tier level content. You usually use CC for more difficult content, and that's where CC shines, right? So I'm curious to see exactly how much these damage numbers are going to end up being, but the fact that it scales really does intrigue me. I'm just curious as to exactly how those numbers are gonna like mesh with each other, right? Now, his last ability combines my favorite ability with another ability that is actually pretty fucking good too. It's now Bastille. So Bastille is actually going to be a 2-part ability, and I feel like Vauban is really the master of toggle and charge abilities, because like I was saying, his first ability, you can hold it down to juggle multiple Teslas and throw out multiple of them at the same time. His second ability, of course, has the weird toggling thing with Mind Layer. Now his ultimate ability, with a tap, you can throw down a Bastille. You can throw down multiple Bastilles by tapping. However, you can also hold down the button to collapse those Bastilles into a vortex. Now, if you just want to throw out a vortex, you can hold down the button instead, and you will throw out a vortex without the whole hullabaloo of the Bastille. Now, there's a couple things to note. First, if you throw out a Bastille and its duration ends, upon it ending, it'll actually collapse down into a vortex for a shorter period of time. Also, whenever you toss down multiple Bastilles and you hold down the button, it'll collapse all of the Bastilles at once. The next thing that I do want to point out as well is supposedly there is a group buff for anybody who's standing inside of the Bastille. Unfortunately, they did not get into what that group buff was going to be. However, they did make note that any enemies caught in the Bastille would slowly have their armor shredded. And this is absolutely fantastic because, as you guys know, when you get into higher level enemies, a lot of the times their defenses can pretty much negate anything that you're trying to do to them. So if you armor shred an enemy, and I hope that they extend this to like shield shred as well. So it's shredding the armor, and then all of a sudden you can collapse that Bastille into a vortex, which sucks enemies into this tight little area, and then you can go ahead and toss down your orbital strike, which scales with those hopefully unarmored enemies. So I'm really, really freaking excited for that synergy, and because of the fact that those enemies are technically like incapacitated, they're like, you know, they can't really move, so I'm hoping that that applies the 25% damage increase to the orbital strike that hits them as well. So all in all, it seems like it's pretty well fleshed out. Of course, I don't feel like it's as flashy or as crazy as Ember's, but Ember is like a pyro and Vauban is like an IT guy. I'm just gonna point that out, right? Now, my only thing about this is, of course, this doesn't really solve the issue with his survivability, but, you know, a good Vauban can always set a lot of traps ahead of time to kind of keep himself safe. But I'm really curious as to what that Bastille buff is gonna be. Will it maybe reduce damage when you're standing inside a Bastille? Just saying, if you haven't considered it yet, DE, maybe that's something that you could do. Because, I mean, bullets could also get caught in the net as well. I'm just saying. Regardless, I'm really excited to see how this all plays out because of the fact that he does feel like he's a little bit more playable now in more mission types. Not saying that he's going to be, you know, the top tier choice for every single thing out there, but I do feel like he's now got his niche. He's become better at his niche. A lot of his overlapping abilities have literally been overlapped in the same ability, and he's gotten some damage boosts to help him kind of like clean up whatever he needs to clean up. So go ahead and leave all of your feelings about this rework down in the comments below. Is there anything that you think that they might have missed with Vauban? Because the only thing that I will say is it's hard because Vauban's shtick has always been the master of CC. So how much further outside of those realms do you really want to go when it comes to a rework? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the Ember video, and that about does it for me for now. So as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.